you'll enjoy these. This was my first commission, and it was for the Grand Ronde tribe in McMinnville, and they were just opening their new casino, and Bruce Thomas was with Stoll Reeves was the acting CEO, and I had done a Native American show at the gallery, and I have a real passion for Native people and their history and culture and their love of nature and wildlife. And so when I found out that they wanted to do a large bronze of one of their tribal members, I became very excited, and so I asked if I could submit a piece into it. And just in hearing the stories, I went into my studio and started sculpting this piece before I was even commissioned or a part of the process. And it was one of those times where I just became totally lost. I'd forgotten to eat. It was, I don't know what time it was when I was done, but it was the next morning, the sun was rising, when I finally came out of this inspired state. And I stood back and I looked at it, and it was almost like I was looking at something that I hadn't created. And I had this old photograph that was taken at the turn of the century, and they told me stories of how Martha Jane, as a little girl, the woman with the basket, had been part of the Rogue River tribe, and it was pre-Civil War times, and her village was raided, and she ran outside of the village, and she slid down the banks of the Rogue River, and she hid inside of a beaver dam, and she laid there all night, and you can imagine as a young girl what that would have been like, to hear her family members screaming, and just the pain that and fear that she must have felt. But she too persevered, and she came out, and she was captured and led north in the Trail of Tears, and was eventually left at the Grand Ronde tribe there, and where Spirit Mountain is. And she took with her this style of basket weaving from her grandmother. And in this picture, it felt like a candid photo that I was looking at. The little girl, her granddaughter Gertrude, was sitting there pulling the reeds for her grandmother. And Martha was like she was reflecting over her whole life. There was a sense of sadness, but yet a sense of contentment that all of her struggles and everything she had been through was worthwhile, because she was passing her family's heritage down to her granddaughter. And these were the emotions that I was feeling as I sculpted her. And I had a woman come into the gallery near the completion of the sculpture, and I hadn't really expressed all of the thoughts I had and all the feelings. I would just look into her eyes, and it was a real blurry photograph, so I really couldn't capture it, but I just felt it. And as my hands worked and these thoughts came through, the next day this woman comes in, and she steps back and she just starts weeping. Tears are coming down her eyes. She goes, it's like a story is being told in the sculpture to me. She goes, there's a sense of sadness, but contentment that her whole life, she's reflecting on her whole life and how hard it's been, but yet it's all been worthwhile. She recited everything I had thought, and I thought, wow, how does that work? How does my feelings somehow transfer through the clay and back again? And that's when I knew that I was dealing with something outside of myself, that I really couldn't take the credit for what was happening. And I just allowed my hands to work and allowed it to be. And I feel so blessed that this is what I get to do as a living. I tell my kids, I said, isn't America great? Your dad gets to play with Play-Doh and people pay him for it. So I started out with that and just never quit. So this is while I was sculpting it, and this is my model, one of Catherine Harrison. You may have heard her name with the Grand Ronde tribe. And she told us stories and told me, how what Martha's life was like and everything. And it was funny when the tribe came and looked at it. Here it is in clay, and you can't see it. And they go, "Oh, good, Martha's got she has hazel eyes. Martha had hazel eyes." And I'm thinking, how the heck do they see hazel eyes? It's brown clay, but but I didn't argue with them. And when I presented it to Bruce at his home, I was very nervous. This was my first major commission, and I bring it in, and he gets up from the thing and walks away, and I'm thinking, oh, this isn't a good sign. And he comes back and he's wiping his eyes, and I go, oh, this is a good sign. he says, you don't know this, but the little girl Gertrude was my grandmother, and he says, this piece just speaks to me so much. And needless to say, I got the commission and kind of set the stage for doing large-scale monuments, and have found that passion in doing the bigger pieces. And as you probably recognize this piece in the background in the photo of former Governor Tom McCall, another great person to pay tribute to, and his life and what he overcame. You know, he was dealing with some challenging times during his administration, and gas prices and all of the different things, the economy and unemployment. But he had such strength in him, and he showed such perseverance and vision for our future, you know. And you look back now, and he really set the stage for what Oregon is about, sustainability and about taking care of our environment. And he was so far ahead of his time in leading really the nation in this movement. And so it's just so fitting that this piece was commissioned. You know, when you talk about perseverance, the group that was involved in this, I can't remember how many years it took, but there was years and years of trying to get this project underway. Norma Paulus led that project and saw it through to completion. And it's like nothing that is worthwhile ever happens easily. I feel on each one of my sculptures, you know, I'm a man, I haven't ever given birth, but I've seen it 3 times with my own children, and it's a long process and a lot of work. And each sculpture, I feel like through that process, it's the first inspired moments is such a short time of what it takes to actually bring a piece through to completion. A lot of sculptures take a year, sometimes longer, and just having to stick with it and push through night and day to capture that portrait, capture that essence. And the same with the group that came together to try to get Tom McCall commissioned into the Life and Half sculpture that you see in Salem here. It took a lot of perseverance. There were times that I'm sure they wanted to give up, but they kept pushing the project forward, and eventually got to see it. And it was such a rewarding day when Audrey got to come and see it and view it. And she said, she tells me, she hugs me, and she says, "You've captured the living Tom." And it just meant so much that she felt that and saw that. This is